Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I am playing the Greenskins against the Wood Elves. It's definitely going to be a good time. I got some Black Orcs ready to chop down some trees. And more importantly, guys, I did indeed bring SKARSNIK. So actually, he's not terrible in this matchup because he has a multitude of different tools in his kit that are actually pretty conducive. So he does have armor piercing, which is pretty pertinent against enemy lords, but he also has an anti-large bonus. So against the trees and other units like that, he's going to do quite well. And of course, he's a great duelist. So pretty useful there. But he has this, which is really good. So Tricksy Traps. So it gives nice speed, it gives leadership, and speed is obviously pretty pertinent here for closing the distance with Wood Elf troops. But this is actually what I was really enjoying, was Spited a Bad Moon. So if you have them like among your front line and you actually activate it, it gives your troops not only expert charge defense, which is pretty applicable, I would say, against a lot of these flying, diving threats, but it also provides plus 48 missile parry. So your shielded units, my orc boys, or goblins, or whatever I have in the front line, will get a pretty nice little perk from that, if used in a timely manner. So you can see Goblet getting in there and giving them a nice lick, so they're ready to go. So we'll go over my army composition real quick here. So I have a front line of orc boys, and I do have to 8 peak loonies. I just like these guys so much, the fact that they're unbreakable and pretty solid combat stats for being gobos, and they'll do well against lightly armored troops. Aside from that, I just have some orc boys in the front line. These guys are just fodder. They're going to take those arrows like champs, and hopefully we'll be able to get in there and do pretty well. And 34 weapon strength isn't bad, actually, against lightly armored Wood Elf frontliners. So obviously, if he did bring like a lot of Treekin in the front line, it would be a much worse situation. But if he did bring Treekin, I felt pretty confident because I did have Black Orcs, and Black Orcs obviously will do very, very well against the trees. They got the big axes. They're ready to go. So I have Gobla. I have the front line of Orc boys with some Black Orcs. I do have a Goblin Big Boss here, and then an Orc Shaman, of course, with to Big Wah. So he has Foot of Gork, he has There We Go, and he has Fist of Gork, which is pretty solid. So on top of that, I do have 2 Doomdiver Catapults. Again, in playing against like Brachonia, I felt like these guys were really solid at dealing with the missile troops, so I figured the same principle would apply to the Wood Elf matchup. So decided to bring 2 of those guys. Then I have a group of Orc Boy Biggins. They're being accompanied by my second Goblin Big Boss. So this is essentially if he has a Glade Lord or some Hawk Riders coming back here to harass my Doomdivers, I wanted to have something to protect them with. So on top of that, I was going to try and overwhelm my opponent with just a lot of kind of low tier units. So I have Goblin Wolf Riders here, but unfortunately these Glade Riders with their 95 speed are actually faster than them, and they can also outrange them, kite them, and their melee stats are about the same. So definitely not a good situation for my Gobos over there. Then I do have another group of Goblin Wolf Riders here, but he also matched me in suit with a group of Wild Riders, which only have 85 speed, so thankfully I should be able to run from those guys. So that's pretty much it for my army composition, guys. He has some Hawk Riders here, which are pretty decent. They're armor piercing in their melee attacks. So their ranged attacks aren't armor piercing, but if they're diving heroic units, or even if they get a nice little charge on Black Orcs, they'll do pretty good. And I like these units. They provide a lot of diversity, and having that kind of armor piercing dive in flying units like this is pretty good. And as far as the rest of his army go, he has War Dancers, and then he has Eternal Guard. So having a combination of those isn't terrible. War Dancers obviously hit pretty hard with 40 weapon strength. So having them against my Orc boys, or having them against Biggins, if I had brought them, would have been pretty darn good. So it's a nice little mixture of units there that he has. He also has 2 Deepwood Scouts right here. So he has 1 here, and it looks like some Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts, so armor piercing. So it looks like he has some traditional kind of just missile attacks that'll do well against lightly armored units, and then he has a group of the Starfire Shafts, which will do good against Black Orcs. So very, very well done there. So Eternal Guards across the board. He also has a group of Treekin. Always a fan of those guys. And then he has a Tree Man. This guy looks so freaking cool. Some of these Wood Elf units, and especially the way that Durthu sounds when he speaks, it's definitely one of my new favorite kind of things in the DLC in general. So he has a Tree Man, and then of course he has Mini Durthu over here, or essentially an Ancient Tree Man, which I believe has, let's go ahead and see, yeah, it has the Lore of Life. So it looks like he probably has some different healing spells and some melee buffs and all that kind of fun stuff. So let's get right into the action, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one, because I most certainly did. So you can see the Doomdivers getting in here. They're not making the best contact, though. Maybe it's the hill. They don't have the best line of sight, but still, just kind of swinging and missing right here. I was able to hit some Eternal Guards and make some good contact here. But what I really wanted to get rid of was these guys, because once they start shooting in here on my Orc boys, it's definitely going to suck a little bit. Are these the poison variant? I don't believe they are. I believe those are just the armor piercing ones. So once they get on the Black Orcs, that'll be a little bit tricky. But you can see SKARSNIK and the boys are kind of waddling over the hill. They're getting ready to go. And I do have some Goblin Wolf Riders that I just had to full-on retreat because he brought the Hawk Riders around. So that wasn't a good situation. But over here, I was able to kind of run away from these guys. You can see the Gobos are not wanting any piece of those Elves over there. They're going to get back here and run back to the Orc Boy Biggins, who will do really well here. The Orc Boy Biggins have an anti-large, so I actually engage him, which is, it's pretty risky, but I figured if these Goblin Wolf Riders could hold them down until my other troops got there, it would be a good situation. And a lot of times people, will just assume the engagement's going well when they look topically, and then they won't realize this other threat's coming. But my opponent, much smarter than that, he actually pulls out, so very, very well played. But hopefully these Orc Boy Biggins can catch them. The goblins did a little bit of damage. It wasn't completely pitiful, but it is what it is. So on the front line, the orc boys are getting in there. They're doing some good fighting, but obviously the war dancers are going to, cut them to pieces. But the black orcs were able to kind of penetrate because the war dancers, well, I guess they're busy over here, but black orcs are just heavy-duty infantry. I mean, even against these guys, they're only 500 gold, despite that fact that they do have armor piercing and high melee defense. And also they're being buffed by Here We Go and the Fist of Gork and Wa. So against this Ancient Tree Men and these other troops in here, and you can see SKARSNIK's up in the mix with that anti-large bonus and armor piercing. And yeah, let me just double check that. I believe he does have armor piercing. So yeah, he's going to get in there, and you can see the tree men starting to take a bit of damage. So very, very good stuff there. Let's go back over to the cab engagement. But the Orc Boy Biggins were able to catch the Wild Riders. And right now, it's actually a really, really even matchup. I mean, the Wild Riders started with a bit of damage, but the Orc Boy Biggins, they're both around like 30 models. It's just neck and neck. So pretty interesting to see that this is actually just very, very close matchup. So good to know for a future reference. But the Doom Divers are continuing to shoot. I decided to keep a Goblin Big Boss back there in case he tried to land his Hawk Riders or something else. But the frontline battle is pretty hectic for sure. And over here, my Goblin Wolfriders? Yeah, they were able to actually catch the Glade Riders, but they did have the support of the Goblin Big Boss. So they were able to win that battle pretty convincingly, which is really nice because now it opens up the floodgates for his back line. But in the melee engagement, it's a pretty pitched battle. You can see SKARSNIK is in here. He used the Tricksy Traps. The Ancient Treeman's starting to take a bit of damage from the Black Orcs, but he is supported by the Treekin here, who are doing surprisingly well considering, the Black Orcs would not be an ideal matchup for them because they don't have armor piercing. They're armored themselves. The Black Orcs obviously have a lot of tools against them. So I do get a Foot of Gork here. I just wanted to try it out and see how it went. And it did quite a bit of damage, I suppose, to some of these backline treemen. Actually, now that I look at it, not that much. So that was probably a really bad decision on my part. But again, it's a new DLC. You got to experiment with different things, see what works. And the Orc Shaman and SKARSNIK are in here. But unfortunately for me, he does have this treeman that come in here. But thankfully, also on that same note, thankfully Black Orcs are immune to psychology because these guys both do cause terror. So it was really, really important that I didn't suffer that. So my Goblin Wolf Riders were able to get into the back line and just ride down some of these missile troops back here. And something that's tricky is a lot of the Wood Elf kind of not the Deepwood Scouts. Let's see what their melee stats are. So they're poisoned right now, so I can't really get an accurate depiction of that. But my opponent does pull back some of his trees to help out. But at that point, I just kind of I guess I didn't micro them away. They actually just routed off from terror. So but the Goblin Big Boss and some Orc boys were able to sneak by and shut down his missile troops. And every second I can do that is really, really big. But melee engagement's actually going really bad. His tree men here is just, they were dumpstering my troops in the front line, and the Black Orcs put up a good fight, but the Orc boys did not hold that long. And you can see they're all kind of routing off in various directions. My Orc Shaman is broken. These Orc boys are broken. These Black Orcs are broken. Just everything's looking pretty bad right now. He does have the Hawk Riders kind of flying over and continue to skirmish and just, my Orc Boy Biggins did pretty good there, though. You can see that, they only have 10 models left. My guys have 7 models, but he also was getting some supporting fire from the Hawk Riders, so that's a very even matchup there. So very, very good stuff to know. In the backline, my Doom Divers have been kind of compromised a little bit. He did pull some troops back here, some War Dancers who were intercepted by some Orc Boys. And Orc Boys, though, this isn't a good matchup for them. They do have 34 weapon strength against really lightly armored War Dancers, so it's not as bad as you would think, actually, now that I look at it in perspective. And these Orc Boys are fighting like champs. They're holding off these War Dancers, but unfortunately some of these guys, the Eternal Guards, are going to come in and make this a little bit of a tighter battle. But thankfully, my guys are still steady here. They're doing a pretty good job. Let's go ahead and get in here and see some nice spearing going on, all kinds of good stuff. So let's go back to the SKARSNIK action. So over here, a lot of my troops are indeed routing off, but thankfully for me, SKARSNIK here, I wish I had been able to show you guys. SKARSNIK was kind of surrounded by his Lord and a few other units, and he did have the support of this Orc Shaman. SKARSNIK was able to skewer the Lord. He was at like 8 or 10% or something, and got a nice little buff from the Shaman here. What was it? I believe it was There We Go or something. And was able to make that contact and cut him down with that anti-large bonus. And also he does have the activatable item, the burst damage, which I was able to use, and it really helped a lot. So SKARSNIK just being an absolute boss here. You can see him and Gobbler are doing a pretty good job just fighting off these Wood Elves, and he was definitely an MVP this game. Like, he was just low and just tanking it and doing a really good job. So unfortunately, my opponent does have these Hawk Riders up above, and they're putting some suppressing fire on my Orc Shaman, and they're able to break him, which is too bad. But this whole skirmish right here is great because SKARSNIK is just holding it like a champ, and then that allows my Black Orcs and other pretty serious infantry. These guys are strong. I mean, there's still 26 models here, though they are shaken. If they get close to my Lord, I think I should be able to pull this one out. Really hard to say, but SKARSNIK still is low, but he's steady despite all that. He has the Wa. And as you can see here, I was trying to path him back towards the Black Orcs so he can get that support, but they're going to get in here. Hopefully they can chop down some trees, but they're taking missile fire from the Hawk Riders. And I think, honestly, if I were to just look at it from my opponent's perspective, I think if he had landed the Hawk Riders and taken advantage of their missile, their melee armor-piercing damage on these like Black Orcs as they were coming in, I think it would have been a little bit better. But you can see SKARSNIK in here, he's actually in good shape. He's confident now, so the tide of that battle has turned. That Treeman, look at that damage. Every time I look away, SKARSNIK just does something epic like that. But he dumpstered that Treeman with that anti-large bonus and the poison and all those other things. And now the Orcs here are confident. You can see the Treekin are actually starting to break. So it was a pretty big turn of events, and you can see my Doom Divers, those Orc boys actually continuing to fight back here for a little while, but they're being pushed back. It looks like these Eternal Guards, which have 46 models, should be able to get through. So these Doom Divers are on their last legs, but I didn't really mind too much because they are out of ammunition. So could be much worse, guys. But SKARSNIK is leading the boys in here. They're able to chase off the last of these Treeman units. So let's go ahead and fast forward here just a little bit, because there's going to be kind of a lot of dancing around here for a moment, because it is a Wood Elf matchup. So these games can take some time. And as you see, there's 3 minutes left. So SKARSNIK and the boys essentially just going around trying to clean up these loose trees, because again, my only option was really to just kill all of his ground units and keep these guys in check here. But I think that was a big misplay on my opponent's part, was not landing and diving. Like a single good charge with these guys, what do they have, 45 melee strength? If they had got in here against the group of Black Orcs that are this low, that would have been pretty devastating, and they probably would have routed off. But on that same note, I do have a Goblin Big Boss and some other strong units and SKARSNIK down here, so you may have seen that as too big of a liability. But anyways, the Treeman's coming back to fight. He's getting ready to go fisticuffs here. He's got his claw out. You can see it's kind of perched out there on the side. Probably going to do some swiping, but SKARSNIK, this is his business, is taking out units like this. And he finally decides to land with some of his birds here. And I believe I was able to use, Tricksy Traps. So it gives him a pretty nice little leadership. And I did use Spite to Bad Moon to give them expert charge defense. Although I don't think they were braced. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can see they actually take off pretty quickly. The Treeman just shatters. So these guys, obviously, army losses are starting to become a pretty serious thing. So they're probably going to rout off somewhat quickly. So let's go ahead and take a look at what my opponent has left here. So I have a nice little pocket here of SKARSNIK. I have some Orc boys, some Black Orcs, and a Goblin Big Boss who's in pretty good shape. In the back line here, some tattered Black Orcs. My opponent has some Eternal Guards here. He has 33 models, and they were able to actually clean up my Doom Diver Catapults pretty well. So very well played on my opponent's part there. So we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit. A lot of chasing, but you can see my opponent continuing to dive. Now he's finally starting to harass, and he's getting a little bit of progress. You can see those Black Orcs, lost about 6 models there. There they lost another 4 models. But you see, coming in with SKARSNIK and that poison, those guys are taking a bit of a beating every time they come in as well. And it's going to be very hard for them to kill SKARSNIK or, any of these heroic units. So looks like they all did shatter that point. So very well played to my opponent. That was a very fun game, to say the least. But let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown. Black Orcs, obviously, this group seemed to get dumpstered quite a bit, but this group did well, 74 kills. Doom Divers, they actually underperformed a little bit in this matchup. I'm used to them doing a lot better and racking up like 70 to 100 kills. But, hey, I feel like a lot of it was the terrain and kind of the leveling of everything, but still, could have been much worse. My opponent did a very, very good job dealing with my Goblin Wolf Riders. He was able to just dumpster one of those groups. Again, my tactics didn't work out so well, but still, the other group was able to get in, disrupt the back line, so I was very pleased with that. And look at the kills on his War Dancers. So yeah, this is a unit I've been neglecting a little bit in my Wood Elf games. So perhaps I'll have to try them out. But man, they paid their dues for sure. 79 and 118. Granted, I think one of them was fighting goblins, so it's kind of always an inaccurate representation, but still. Very well played to my opponent, Deny A. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Gobbo cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.